Most people chasing a lean body are chasing a lie. A massive body composition study tracked over 9,000 American men. The average body fat percentage among them sat near 27%. 97% of men never reach 15% body fat. Less than 0.1% naturally reach visible six-pack abs. Read that again, because it matters more than you think. You have better odds of becoming a millionaire than owning that physique. Yet every time you open Instagram, everyone looks shredded and effortless. So what is actually happening behind those perfect-looking photos? Is that level of leanness even realistic for a normal person? Or is almost everyone following a broken, outdated approach to dieting? By the end of this, you will know exactly what works. I dropped from 15.6% body fat to 11.6. 60 days, nearly half my stubborn belly fat gone for good. No crashed metabolism, no rebound weight gain, no starvation, no shortcuts. And the very first mistake happens before a single meal changes. That mistake is believing what social media quietly trains you to believe. Scroll Instagram or TikTok for 10 minutes and abs start feeling normal. Every influencer looks lean year-round, every transformation photo looks permanent. Slowly, your brain accepts an impossible standard as an average baseline. But that feed is not reality, it is a curated highlight reel. Nobody posts the exhaustion required to sit at extremely low body fat. As body fat drops low enough, your body starts actively resisting you. Hunger climbs, cravings intensify, energy drops, and metabolism can even slow. One famous nutrition study pushed participants down to very low body fat. Some became obsessed with food, thinking about meals constantly throughout the day. Others chewed gum non-stop just to distract themselves from relentless hunger. This is exactly why most people set goals that are unnecessarily extreme. You do not need 8% body fat to look genuinely great. You do not need to live like a competing physique athlete either. For most people, 12 to 20% body fat looks incredible year-round. That range lets you build a great physique while still enjoying life. Now that the real target is clear, let's talk about the strategy. It begins by doing the exact opposite of typical diet advice. Most coaches say start slow, cut a little, add cardio gradually. It sounds smart on paper, but does it actually match your biology? At the start of a diet, you carry the most fat to lose. Motivation is highest, energy is strongest, and your mind is fully engaged. So why would you save the hardest effort for weeks down the road? The truth is simple. Your body fights harder the leaner you become. Hunger rises, cravings intensify, fatigue creeps in, and metabolism can even slow. Every single pound becomes noticeably harder to lose than the one before. That is exactly why I flipped the entire strategy on its head. Instead of easing in slowly, I started with real aggressive intensity, a larger calorie deficit during the exact phase my body could handle it. The goal was never to suffer needlessly for the sake of suffering. The goal was capturing the window where fat loss comes fastest and easiest. And almost immediately, something surprising and motivating started to happen quickly. Weight dropped faster than expected, and my waistline began shrinking visibly. Motivation skyrocketed because the mirror and the scale finally matched effort. Then, somewhere around week 5, everything shifted in a noticeable direction. Cravings arrived uninvited. Hunger became louder, harder to casually push aside. My body sent a very clear and unmistakable message: slow down now. This is exactly where most diets quietly fall apart and collapse. Because success is not about brute force pushed endlessly without adjustment. It is about knowing precisely when to push and when to ease off. And that decision almost always comes down to nutrition, not raw willpower. By this stage, one important truth had already proven itself completely true. Fat loss is not only about willpower, it is about sustainability. A deficit only works long-term if you can actually sustain it daily. Most people unknowingly sabotage themselves by focusing on quantity, not quality. They eat less overall, but never consider what those calories are made of. The result is constant hunger, low energy, and counting days until quitting. So the next phase of my plan had one clear, simple priority: protect muscle while making the entire process noticeably easier to sustain.
and the single most valuable tool for that job was protein. Think of protein as insurance, actively protecting your hard-earned muscle tissue. When calories drop low, your body searches urgently for available energy sources. Without enough protein, your body burns fat and breaks down muscle too. This is exactly why many dieters finish looking smaller, softer, weaker overall. Sometimes people even end up looking skinny with almost no shape. So instead of memorizing complicated nutrition rules, I focused on one habit. Every single meal needed a solid, reliable source of quality protein. Chicken, fish, Greek yogurt, lean beef, eggs, anything keeping intake consistently high. A simple guideline that works well is a palm-sized portion per meal. It sounds almost too simple to matter, yet the results are dramatic. Higher protein preserves muscle, increases fullness, and makes a deficit far easier. But protein alone was never going to be the entire complete solution, because you can still overeat calories even while hitting your protein target. And the biggest calorie traps rarely come from foods you would suspect. They hide quietly inside meals you are already eating every single day. Here is where most diets become far harder than they actually need to be. People assume fat loss requires eliminating entire categories of food completely. No carbs, no bread, no rice, no pasta, no fats, no snacks. That approach might survive a few days before reality inevitably catches up. Cravings intensify, motivation fades fast, and the entire plan eventually collapses. The real truth is fat loss never demanded extreme total restriction. It demanded smarter, smaller decisions, repeated consistently across many normal days. Instead of removing entire foods, I made small, consistent daily adjustments. If a meal called for 3 whole eggs, I used 2 whites instead. If a wrap needed a full avocado, half an avocado worked just fine. If dinner included a large rice portion, I swapped some for vegetables. Nothing dramatic, nothing miserable, nothing that felt like genuine deprivation happening. Yet these quiet swaps removed hundreds of calories from my day consistently. That is the real secret successful dieters eventually discover through experience. The best fat loss plan barely feels like a diet at all. It feels almost identical to how you already naturally eat and live. Because the easier a plan feels, the longer you will actually follow it. And consistency beats short bursts of perfection every single time, always. But even the smartest weekday plan gets tested once the weekend arrives. Birthdays, family dinners, restaurants, spontaneous nights out with close friends again. This is where most people either quit completely or drown in guilt. Fortunately, there is a strategy backed by psychology and real-world results. It might explain why some people stay lean while others repeatedly regain. At this stage, the diet was clearly working. Fat was steadily dropping. But I knew the most dangerous part of the entire journey remained ahead: the weekend. If you have ever dieted, you already know this pattern. Monday through Friday, everything runs perfectly. Meals prepped, calories tracked, discipline solid. Then Saturday hits, a family event, a dinner out, a celebration somewhere.
Suddenly, one meal spirals into an entire weekend of uncontrolled overeating. Guilt follows immediately, convincing you the whole week is already ruined. So you tell yourself you might as well restart everything next Monday. That exact cycle traps countless people for months, sometimes for years straight. What finally broke that pattern for me was something surprisingly simple. Instead of avoiding enjoyable food entirely, I deliberately planned space for it. Every week included one intentionally larger meal built directly into the plan. Not a cheat day, not an unlimited binge, just a controlled increase. Psychologists call this planned indulgence, and it works because it removes restriction. Instead of thinking, "I cannot have that," the option was already allowed. The result was less guilt, less stress, and dramatically better long-term adherence.
and better adherence means a much higher chance of actually reaching lean. But even a flawless diet still leaves one critical piece missing entirely, because what happens inside the gym decides how your final result looks. By this stage, nutrition was clearly doing its job. Fat kept dropping. But another important problem still needed solving before the transformation felt complete. Losing weight and looking lean are not actually the same outcome. You have probably seen someone lose 20, 30, even 40 pounds total, yet somehow they still are not happy with their final reflection. Clothes fit better, the scale reads lower, but the imagined look never appears. Why does that happen so often to people who worked incredibly hard? Because fat loss alone never builds an athletic, defined-looking physique. Muscle does that job, and muscle needs a very specific kind of signal. During a deficit, your body has no automatic reason to preserve muscle. Given the chance, it will happily burn muscle tissue for easy energy. That is exactly why resistance training became a non-negotiable part of my plan. Not endless cardio sessions, not hours wasted slowly walking on a treadmill. Real weight training with real intent and real consistent effort behind it. The goal was never burning extra calories during those actual workout sessions. The goal was sending a clear signal: this muscle stays, keep it. One of the biggest training mistakes people make is cutting volume too aggressively. They feel tired from dieting, so they quietly stop pushing themselves hard. Unfortunately, that exact moment is when muscle loss becomes far more likely. Instead, I focused on maintaining strength, especially in stubborn, harder-to-build areas. And something genuinely surprising happened as the weeks continued moving forward steadily. Certain muscles actually looked noticeably bigger as the fat covering them disappeared. Not because they grew dramatically, but because visibility finally revealed real shape. Still, despite every benefit lifting weights offers, one myth needed correcting immediately: burning huge amounts of calories. Weight training simply does not do that. And that brings us directly to one of fat loss's most misunderstood topics: the real, often frustrating truth about cardio and its actual limited impact. When people want faster fat loss, their first instinct is always more cardio. Run longer, push harder, burn more calories, spend extra time moving constantly. On paper, that logic sounds completely reasonable and even mathematically obvious. But here's the surprising, frustrating truth almost nobody explains clearly enough. Cardio is often far weaker than most people assume it actually is. Many people add more cardio, work harder, and still watch progress stall. Why does that keep happening despite clearly increased daily effort and sweat? Because the human body compensates in ways most people never even notice. Go for a long run and burn a genuinely respectable amount of calories. But what happens naturally in the hours immediately following that hard effort?
You sit more, move less, feel more tired, and eat slightly more. Suddenly, a large portion of those burned calories gets quietly canceled out. This is exactly why one underrated tool outperforms almost every cardio session. Not running, not cycling, not the stair climber everyone secretly dreads using. Simply walking. Specifically, increasing your total daily step count consistently every day. The average person burns roughly 50 to 70 calories per 1,000 steps. Increasing daily steps from 4,000 to 8,000 creates a real deficit. And it does that without exhausting you or wrecking your daily recovery. Most people can realistically commit to one consistent 15-minute daily walk. Very few people can sustain intense cardio sessions every single day for months. And that reveals the real lesson hiding underneath all of this advice. The best fat loss method is never the one burning the most today. It is the one you will still be doing 6 months from now. But even with perfect training, diet, and daily movement fully dialed in, one final challenge quietly waits for almost everyone who reaches this point. It explains why over 80% of people eventually regain lost weight. At this stage, everything felt like it was finally working exactly right.
Diet under control, training consistent, daily steps higher than ever before recorded. Fat kept coming off exactly according to plan, week after week, steadily. But that is precisely when the biggest hidden problem quietly revealed itself. Almost nobody talks about it honestly until it becomes a personal problem. Keeping the fat off long after the initial excitement completely disappears eventually. Most people assume once weight drops, the hardest part is finally over. They imagine simply continuing life forever inside their brand new, leaner body. Unfortunately, that assumption does not match how human biology actually operates. Research consistently shows most people who lose significant weight eventually regain much, not from laziness, not from missing discipline, but from working biology instead. As you lose weight, your body becomes noticeably more calorie efficient overall. Weighing less means moving requires fewer total calories than it used to. Metabolism adapts downward. Hunger signals often grow stronger and harder to ignore. The exact food amount that once maintained your weight can now cause gain. It genuinely feels like your body is quietly pulling you back toward before. This is where many people make one final, critical, avoidable mistake. They treat the diet as a short-term project with a clear finish line. But getting lean was never meant to be a temporary, isolated event. It is a transition into habits built specifically to last for years. Anyone can follow a strict plan intensely for a few motivated weeks. The real challenge is building a lifestyle that survives once excitement completely fades. That distinction separates people who stay lean from people who restart endlessly. So after covering the diet, the training, the steps, and every setback, what is the single biggest lesson worth remembering from this entire journey? It is refreshingly simple. Getting lean was never about finding a perfect diet. It was never about a secret supplement or some hidden magic trick. And it was definitely never about suffering more than everyone else around you. People who get lean and actually stay lean share one defining trait. They build a complete system, not a temporary burst of short-lived motivation. A system that keeps working when motivation feels high and completely effortless. A system that still works when motivation completely disappears without warning. Because motivation is temporary, but life keeps happening whether you feel ready. Vacations, holidays, stressful weeks, family events, and unexpected setbacks will always arrive. If your entire plan depends on daily perfection, it will eventually break.
That is exactly why these specific habits carry so much real power. Eating enough protein, making small swaps instead of extreme total restriction, lifting weights consistently, walking more daily, and planning flexibility instead of resisting it. None of these habits feel exciting, and none promise instant dramatic results, but together they create something genuinely valuable, a physique you can maintain. When this journey began, becoming the leanest person alive was never the goal. Chasing some impossible standard invented by curated social media feeds was never it. The real goal was building a body that looked good and felt good, a body capable of staying that way for years, not just weeks. That should be your focus too, starting from wherever you currently stand. Because years from now, nobody remembers the exact body fat percentage you hit. What matters is whether you built habits keeping you strong and confident. And if you manage that, you have achieved something far more valuable. You have achieved something that actually lasts, real and lasting success, finally.